Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this is the second video in my series on Go and its backend framework, Buffalo, which again is really sort of pulling in lots of different little mini libraries and frameworks into one sort of grandiose backend framework, a la Rails, a la Django, etc. So in the first video, we just kind of created a new project. I showed you the basics of like, okay, what the file structure is and where you would do your routes, where would you put your static assets. So what I'm going to do in this video is just show you how you would create like an API endpoint. So if you want to have an endpoint that sends data back as JSON, how would you set that up? Just the basics of how you set that up. In the future, we'll actually set up models and put data in a database and pull data from that database and kind of play with that more. But just to kind of give you a flavor. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to start up our server, Buffalo dev. So I'll let that start up, and we're going to head over to actions, because again, all our route and route handlers are going to be in actions. So add our route to app.go. Okay, so I'm going to create another endpoint. So I'll do another app.get. So right now we're just doing get requests. Probably in the future we'll do some post and put requests. But if you think it's just basically putting put or post and then the function, you kind of got the point. Okay, and again, I didn't mention this, even though we did look at that the static assets are in the assets folder. It's this piece of code here that actually allows those files to be served. And this assets box variable is over here, I think, in render.go. Okay, and then that's where that comes from, which kind of configures it. I wouldn't touch it. It serves it from the static folder, and it just, from that assets folder, and it just works, and I wouldn't play with it more beyond that. Okay, so let's see here. Home.go. We want to create, well, let's finish creating that route. So we're going to call this one API. Okay, and then we'll just call this API handler, just as a or that. That's not what I meant to type. Handler. Okay, so there's the route, but it doesn't actually have a handler yet. So I need to create another handler. So I will copy one of my existing handlers. Boop. In home.go. Add it, and this will be my API handler. It'll handle my API route. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want there to be data that I'm going to send. So I'm just going to create hard code some data. Okay. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to create a basic map of a person. Okay. So again, this is Go. So this is not like JavaScript where I can just automatically do an object with any kind of data that I want. If I wanted to do that, like, I might as well go through that process. But first I'll do the map. So we're going to just say Alex is going to equal a map. The keys of that map will be strings. And the values of that map will be strings. Okay, so that's what that means. I'm creating a new map, which is essentially a key value pair structure. And the keys will be strings and the values will be strings. I have to kind of type it. That's just how maps work in Go. Okay, so I'm going to say name and colon Alex Merced and comma age, and in this case I have to do it as a string because that's how I typed it. 34, at least for another 7 days. Okay, June 30th is my birthday. Okay, and depending on what year you're watching this, technically my birth date is June 30th, 1985. You do the math. Okay. Okay, HTTP status okay. Good. Okay, so we created this piece of data here. Okay, we created this map. It's essentially name Alex Merced, age 34. I think you guys see where this is going. Now what I want to do is I don't want to render a template, okay? So I don't want to use render. Well, actually I do. You're always going to use crender. What's going to be different is whether you use here's where things change. So instead of me sending back HTML, I want to render JSON. So this becomes r.json, and what I want to send back is Alex, that variable we made named Alex. Okay, so now this endpoint will send back Alex as JSON data. Okay, and then there's always all these things. It should be in the form of API handler. Yeah, see, it's very particular about how even the comments next to each handler. So again, this is only a warning. It's just trying to tell me that, hey, you can do this better. Okay, so I'll just quickly edit these so we can get those squiggly lines out of the way. Text handler. Okay, now what's it complaining about here? Should be a... Really? That's what you're going to harp on about? Let me take a look. How did I spell it over here? That's all I care about. Does it match? Yes, it matches. Okay. Now let's head over to Chrome. Now when I go to that endpoint that we created, I should be able to just get the JSON data back. So localhost 3000 slash API. And that's 3000. Okay, and there you go. So we got back the data. Age 34, name Alex Merced. So we created an API endpoint. Now the thing is, you're rarely sending everything in as strings. Like, you don't want all your values to be treated as strings, and you'd rarely sending everything over as numbers either. So what if you want to send over something more complex? Well, in Go, you have to define your types. So in that case, what I would want to do is define a type, which is a struct. So it would be like type struct, which type means I'm defining a new type. There are different types you can define, structs, interfaces. I'm defining a new type called struct, and actually I think I have to put the name beforehand. Okay, so I'm going to create a new type. We're going to call it a person, which is a struct, and a person includes a property called name, which is a string, and includes a property called age, which is an integer. Okay, cool. So that's what we did there. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to change Alex. Instead of Alex being a map, it is going to be a new person. Okay, it's of type person. Okay, which has a property called name, which is Alex Merced. That's fine, and a property called age. Except now, since I've already defined them, I don't need to specify the key names. So let me just get rid of all this. And I think all I have to do is just do Alex Merced. So the first thing I define is going to go under the name property, and the second thing I define will go under the age property. That should do it. Okay, and then now I'm sending back that person. So now I can send back text data and numerical data. So essentially when you create models, later on when we do models, it's essentially going to create a struct for your model. And essentially that struct is what's going kind of in and out of your database. It's sort of the way it interfaces with the database. But just so you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, let's see if it's working. Always keep, see here, API, it does a thing, and it doesn't give it back to me. So that means I did something funky with the syntax. Okay, equals a person. Is it parentheses? I always get confused with the struct syntax. So go structs. Structs. That's fine. Okay. So here we're creating that's basically the same thing I just did. Neat, they're using the same example. That's cool, because I actually have read this particular page before. String int, yeah, that's fine. I'll just see where they created a new one. Person, func, new person, p equals person name age. Okay, so I do have to do the keys. I just don't have to put quotations around them anymore since they're now symbols. So I can do this, name, age. There we go. And what's that? said about it, it's probably the same thing, the API thing. Okay, so let's try that again. Still doesn't like it. Okay, let me think about that. Alex equals a person. Let me just refer back to this again. Equals person, quotations, name. That's all good. Type, person, struct, name string agent. Yeah, that's kind of how we set it up. Person, struct, name string, age int. Yep, here I'm saying Alex equals a new person. Name Alex Merced, age 34. That's an integer. JSON Alex. Now I'm just going to see if I'm actually creating Alex correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a, do I have FMT available to me right now? I should include FMT then. FMT. That's the library for printing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an FMT dot print line. Okay, and then we're going to print Alex. Cool. So when I run that route, hopefully it'll print out Alex, so we can see that Alex is actually creating the person I think it's creating. That'll be sort of how we'll diagnose this. So let's refresh the route. Evaluated, but not use. Boo. Guess Go doesn't, well, Buffalo doesn't like it when I try to use print. Okay, after doing some reading, it looks like I made a very silly mistake. So basically what happens is that while this works, so like I actually was able to print Alex, so the struct is fine. Problem is, it needs the name and age, the properties need to be exported. And in Go, anything gets exported always is done as a capital. So basically, this has to become name and age for those properties to be visible when I run this JSON function. So then I need to change this to name and age. There we go, name and age. And that should now give us back the JSON, so let's find out. Unknown field, okay, so I don't think it's saved. Give it a second to save it, the most recent version. Okay. Let's go back over here, let's refresh. And that works. So basically the thing to keep in mind is that for Go, you have to make sure that all your struct properties have capital letters. Because if not, this JSON function won't pick up on them because technically they're not exported. And that's the same thing with all like your functions. So basically I can use all these files as part of this actions package. But what I can use from file to file generally has to be uppercase. So again, upcasing matters a bit in Go, not necessarily the name of everything. But if you want something to be used sort of cross files or outside of where its current existence is, it should be capitalized. So, okay, well that's it. So basically now you know how to make a API endpoint, and not only how to do it with just a map as we did earlier, but now how to do it with a struct and basically avoid this troubleshooting error later on. And that's pretty straightforward. So basically, and there's some other cooler stuff you can do. We're going to talk about, you know, setting up resources and all that fun stuff. But again, just to recap, you create another route like you would create any other route here. You have your handler function, which will be defined over here in the home.go page, or you can create another file, whatever you want to do. And yeah, and let's say I wanted to do that. Let's actually show you that as well. What if I wanted to create another page to put all my handlers? New file. So let's say I create handler.go. Okay, so I want all my handlers in there. So what I'm going to do is a couple things I need to copy over. I want to make sure I copy over all these libraries and stuff that I'm importing. So I'm going to copy that over, Control C, put that in handler.go. See, this tells it that it's part of the actions package, which is that folder. So that means all the files in there can refer to each other without having to like explicitly import or export anything. Okay, that's going to complain for a bit while I make these changes. I'm going to want this struct since I'm going to be moving over that particular library. So I'm going to cut that out and take out this FMT because the usage of this library I added, and I'm going to remove it now that I'm porting this stuff over. So I'm going to just take that out, go back to handler, put the struct over here. Okay, and then I'm going to take all my handlers, other than the default handler, out of here. Put those down here. Okay, and then that should get us back up and running. Let me see if I don't think I need to import it explicitly because they're part of the same package, so you generally don't have to import